You are the person that has to stand up for your own work-life balance because no one else will do it for you. Hey, my name is Maria and I'm an engineering manager at a big tech company. Most weeks I don't work more than 40 hours at my regular tech job, but often I actually achieve more than my peers that work 40 to 60 hours a week. In this video, I'd like to share my method that I've been testing for many years that led me to this type of work-life balance, even when most of my peers were working crazy hours. I'm filming this because I gave the same talk many times at my current company when people ask me, hey, how do you and how does your team achieve such good work-life balance? We actually have an internal survey at the company that we run every 6 months, and more than 2 times in a row, my team has actually reached a perfect score for work-life balance. Whenever I start a new project, I try to remind myself why I'm doing this project. What is the one thing I want to get out of it? Or even what's the learning experience that I want to have with this project? For many of you, that might mean, oh, I want to check out this new technology and I want to just get the project done. For some of you, that may mean people growth or working with a different part of your company. But whenever you know what your goal is, you can actually start implementing what you want to focus on. For example, if your current goal in life is to work 40 hours a week, focus on your personal life and learn tennis, that should be your priority. If your goal in this job right now is to get your foot into the door and get a full-time job because you're a contractor or an intern, your goals for work-life balance may be very different because you have a much shorter time span for what you want to achieve. Whenever you have a goal in mind, remember to practice self-care even when you're stressed. In the past, when I was super stressed, what I did was doubling down on the stress. So when I was behind a project, I tried to run faster to get to the finish line. Eventually, I learned that actually hurt me more than it helped me. Your career is not a sprint, your career is a marathon. So you want to make sure that you have the self-care measures in order to run the marathon and not pass out after the sprint. Burnout is a really big thing in our industry and you have to take care of yourself to not get burned out. So what do I do instead? Often when I'm stressed now, I slow down instead of speeding up. And that sounds counterintuitive to most people, but it actually helps a lot. Let's say I'm in a meeting, I completely disagree with the strategy, and as a result, I feel so stressed and I feel like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore today. If I continue to have meetings on the same day, I don't think I show up the way I want to show up to other people on my team or to my partners. But if I take a few hours off after, this actually helps me balance myself and come back stronger for the next day. So whenever I see someone on my team that's stressing out and has a very bad time, really is trying to crunch to that deadline, if the deadline allows it, I tell them, slow down. Do something that actually relaxes you. Don't think about work because I trust you to come back stronger tomorrow. I've seen this so much, especially with new grads, because when you're a new grad, you're in college and you're always sprinting to some class ending. You're always sprinting to the finish line of a homework or a final or a midterm. At your job, you can't do this anymore because you need to do this for many, many years in the future. So understanding what your boundaries are, when you need to slow down and what to do for it is incredibly important. Another thing I do and that I recommend to every single person on my team is declining meetings when they're not useful. I have never been shy with declining meetings, even with critical people at the company. Sometimes I even decline meetings with my immediate management chain if I don't see a clear agenda. For example, I have this rule that if I see a meeting on my calendar that's longer than 30 minutes, has a bunch of people on it and doesn't have an agenda, I don't think it's useful for my time because it doesn't seem to be an effective or an efficient meeting. What I do in this case is I reach out to the meeting organizer and I tell them that. I tell them, hey, I saw you put this meeting on my calendar. Can you add an agenda so I see if it's actually worth 60 minutes of my time? What happens as a result is often people actually reduce the time that they need for the meeting. So a 60-minute meeting is suddenly a 30 minutes meeting, or they add an agenda so you know exactly what parts of the meeting you need to be there for. Sometimes I even tell them, hey, it seems like you only need me for the second part of the meeting. Can I just join later? And no one has ever said anything. And I really want to encourage you to not be shy about it. We live in a world where we have a ton of remote meetings. It's incredibly important to connect with your peers, yes, but you don't have to be in all of those meetings all the time. For me, I value it way more if I have one of the engineers on my team super present for 10 minutes versus being just there for 60 60 minutes and like half listening. So if you feel like, okay, I can be present for 10 minutes, tell your manager. I'm sure you will get more out of that meeting too. Going back to your goals, you also need to learn how to say no to projects that got recommended to you. So even if you're working on a promotion, or you want to get a different job title, or you want to get a raise, we want to see consistent output instead of the quick grind to success. For example, if I have a project that I want to give to an engineer, and I come to that engineer and say, hey, there's this project that I want you to work on, and that engineer just takes the project, doesn't tell me that they actually are overloaded with work, grinds for success on the weekend, and then comes back Monday super exhausted, super tired, probably not happy with me as their manager because they think, oh, she's just putting more work on my calendar all the time. That's not a good experience for me, and that's not a good experience for them. Instead, what I expect my people to do is when I come to them with a project proposal, I want them to tell me what else they have to work on. If they tell me, hey, Maria, I have project 1, 2, and 3, how important is this new project compared to the other ones? And then I go back and say, oh, I didn't know those projects are still going on. It's totally fine. We will find a solution. Because I don't want them to work on a weekend. That's not what life is for. That's not the type of manager I want to be. So if you come to your manager and tell them exactly what I just told you, I'm sure they have empathy and they will help you find a solution for it. And if you're worried about personal success, if you're worried about, oh, but if I tell my manager this, I will not get the senior engineering level promotion, etc., don't worry, because the way we look at maturity is different. We look at mature engineers in a way where they tell us if they cannot meet a deadline, if they need some help. That's what maturity means. It doesn't mean to be quiet and work all weekend to get a project done. No. The hustle culture belongs to college life. In your career, you need to be honest. One thing that happens quite a lot in your industry is dealing with immediate business needs. So whenever a stressful situation happens and your boss tells you, oh, we have this deadline, and we know it in tech, most deadlines are wrong. We always estimate too little for too much work. So this will happen to you eventually as well. But when that happens, I try to remind people, if it's on my team, if it's for myself, if you have an important project going on, you have to take even more care of your calendar. Don't join the meetings if you feel like they're not useful. Another thing that I tell people is take your time back. For example, I was once working on a team that constantly had releases on a Saturday or on a Sunday. So I had to work on a weekend. Whenever that happens, I actually wrote down for myself how many hours I worked on that Saturday and then deducted it from my work hours on Monday. So I know that my company right now, we don't really have work hours, no one tracks it, but I did it for myself because I knew, oh, I put in some hours on the weekend, so I should get those hours back for myself. Also in that case, no one ever cared about this because they know and trust me that I get my work done. And that's way more important than the amount of hours that you actually put into your job. The last and most important thing from this video is holding yourself accountable. There is no one out there that cares as much about you as yourself. You are the person that has to stand up for your own work-life balance because no one else will do it for you. Your manager will not help you if you don't tell them. So you need to be there for yourself. You need to speak up for yourself and you have to make it happen so your work-life balance actually gets better. Some final remarks. I know this may sound a little bit out there for many people, like taking care of declining meetings, being very upfront and honest with your manager, and I know this is very new to many of you. So be patient with yourself. Good work-life balance doesn't just happen overnight, and you really have to practice it. You really have to apply it every single day. And hold yourself accountable. Set calendar blocks in your calendar. For me, I set very specific meeting hours. From 11 a.m. till 5 p.m., I tell my team those are my meeting hours and I'm not going to take anything after that, except for big exceptions. For example, I have a team member right now that's based in a different country with a very different time zone, so I had to take an 8 a.m. meeting this morning. But usually I don't do that unless there's a really, really, really good reason. And if I have someone that comes to me and puts a random 7 p.m. meeting on my calendar, I will go back to them and tell them, hello, I saw you put a 7 p.m. meeting on my calendar. I'm based in New York and this is after my meeting hours. Can we just meet tomorrow? Most people will say yes. I've never seen a single person that comes back to me and says, no, I need you to be there at 7 p.m. unless it's a huge meeting with 100 people. Here's how I structure my calendar. I start with daily focus blocks in the morning where I get most of my work done. I also make sure I have a lunch break every day. Next, I set another hour of focus time after my meeting hours to catch up on projects. Also, I specifically add a block for after my working hours to show people I won't take meetings at that time. Some weeks, I add extra focus time for a whole day if I need to get more individual work in. And when you're done with this, you have a calendar that allows for lots of focus time, and you can change it the way it's most productive for you or the situation on your team. If you like this type of video, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you.